Thanks again for tuning into another episode of Bud's Hot Sports Takes, where I bring you the unbiased news when it comes to sports and hot topics. As you may have guessed it, I'm Bud. With football season here, we will be giving you the scoop of leaders from last week, where the current leader standings are, and as well as some suggestions on who your fantasy players and fantasy daily sports people who play like DraftKings and FanDuel should be picking for Sunday. Um, with football season, of course, just being the hottest topic when it comes to sports. Now, without further ado, your Week 8 passing leaders. Jameis Winston, 334 yards, 3 touchdowns. Also, he wound up getting the NFL Player of the Week. Baker Mayfield, 330 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Jaden Daniels with 326 yards, 1 touchdown. Trevor Lawrence, 308 yards, 2 TDs, 1 interception. And Kyler Murray with 307 yards and 2 touchdowns. Your Week 8 rushing leaders was Tyrone Tracy Jr. with 145 yards, 1 touchdown. DeAndre Swift with 129 yards, 1 touchdown. Jahmyr Gibbs, 127 yards, 1 touchdown. Josh Jacobs also with 127 yards, but had 2 touchdowns. And Najee Harris with 114 yards. Week 8 receiving leaders. CeeDee Lamb with 146 yards, 2 touchdowns. Calvin Ridley with 143 yards. George Kittle with 128 yards, 1 touchdown. Terry McLaurin with 125 yards, and Trey McBride with 124 yards. Now, your season leaders in those categories are as follows. Passing, Geno Smith, 2,197 yards, 8 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Baker Mayfield with 2,189 yards, 21 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions. Kirk Cousins, 2,106 yards, 14 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. Brock Purdy, 2,101 yards, 10 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. And Lamar Jackson with 2,099 yards, 17 touchdowns, and two interceptions. Rushing, Derrick Henry with 946 yards, 9 touchdowns, and 1 fumble. Saquon Barkley, 766 yards, 5 touchdowns. Jordan Mason, 685 yards, 3 touchdowns. Sorry about the coughing, guys. Just done Jordan Mason, who had 685 yards, 3 touchdowns. Josh Jacobs, 667 yards, 3 touchdowns. And Chuba Hubbard with 593 yards, 3 touchdowns. Receiving, Jamar Chase, 674 yards, 7 touchdowns. Justin Jefferson, 646 yards, 5 touchdowns. CeeDee Lamb with 613 yards, 4 touchdowns. Terry McLaurin, 579 yards, 4 touchdowns. And Chris Godwin with 576 yards, 5 touchdowns. Now the moment you all have been waiting for. Who do you pick for your teams come Sunday? If you are playing FanDuel, since Joe Flacco is so cheap and has shown in the time he got to play last year and the few times he got to play this year, including the only week he got to start in which he was in the weekly top 5 leaders that week, that I say pick him up and grab Josh Downs as well. But if you feel stronger about Pittman, I'm not going to fault you for that. And he has done well with Flacco. But Downs is having the better year, and the increased QB position should help that even further. But either way, grab Flacco and Downs or Pittman, but not both. Poised for good points at bargain basement prices here. But if you are playing DraftKings, then this isn't a pick you can make, as DraftKings is not including the Colts versus Vikings game. Now, the rest of the list and video will be keeping that in mind and picking for both apps, acting as if that game doesn't exist. Which is why, for you FanDuel players out there, I wanted to let you know Joe Flacco and Josh Downs, since Flacco is starting. Now let's get to it on who to pick. Quarterback Caleb Williams. So far this year, when playing against a bottom five in the league team, when it comes to defense, bottom five in the league defense team in the NFL, he is averaging over 20 plus points in daily fantasy sports in both DraftKings and FanDuel, and being one of the cheapest QBs in both to grab, as he is $6,100 in DraftKings and $7,200 in FanDuel, makes him a good choice for for a start. And I know he just had a disastrous week, which told you if he wanted to win, which I told you if he wanted to win that game, which I figured he would throw the ball to commit. And he throws to him only once. So that wasn't on me, guys. That was not on me. Anyways, this trend of him putting up these kind of numbers against bottom five defenses has still been the case and following even after a terrible game. So don't put much stock in last game and let statistics do what statistics do, and grab Caleb Williams for a cheap 20 plus points and use that money on adding depths and points in other places. Honorable mention is Bo Nix, as he is playing against the Ravens, who, well, are right now a scoring nightmare, as they are putting up a lot of points. Their secondary is, on the other hand, is right now going into week 9 ranked last in the league. And that run defense is topping the charts at 1, though. Which, no surprise, with a duo like Henry and Jackson every week in practice against the run. And in 3 of the last 4 games Nix has played, he has scored 20 plus points, including almost 30 in his last game. And with a low asking price of $5,900 on DraftKings and $7,200 on FanDuel, this may just be that pick that makes your lineup looking a lot better. Running back Ramondre Stevenson. He is going for $6,300 on DraftKings and $6,800 on FanDuel. And while unlike the last 2 picks, I don't think this pick is going to net you 20 plus fantasy points, although he has done that multiple times this year and is capable of it. But I don't see it happening this week. But I do think, this pick will put up 14 to 15 fantasy points. Stevenson knows how to find the end zone, and traditionally actually performs better against better defenses, which seems pretty strange, but statistically that's what he does. He performs better against a tough defense. And while the Tennessee Titans defense is still a terror against the pass, their rushing defense has fallen all the way back to the middle of the pack. So expect the Patriots to be running the ball even more than usual this game, which a tough defense and more carries both bode well for Stevenson going out there and doing his thing. DeAndre Swift is costing you 7,200 in FanDuel and 6,400 in DraftKings. In his last 4 games straight, he has scored a touchdown and scored 19 plus in FanDuel and 20 plus points in DraftKings. Again, just like me picking Caleb Williams because he has been playing very well against bottom in the league defenses and playing the Cardinals. Well, Swift is on a roll and is running red hot and playing against the Cardinals. And Swift has experience hurting teams on the ground or through the air receiving. And with a bad defense all around, I say give Swift the field and your money and put him to work for you. The thing I hate most about this week is we are 2 positions in and we have 2 Bears nominations. And I can't stand the Bears. Which tells you when I say unbiased opinions, I mean it. And also how much I believe in these picks. Honorable mention, Josh Jacobs. And he did well last week for me as the honorable mention. So let's suit him in that position again. Going for 6,900 in DraftKings and 7,400 in FanDuel. He has been topping the charts all season long, week after week, getting top 5 in yards. That's one of the reasons he is 4th in the league in rushing yards. And last week, he turned his 1 touchdown on the season into 3 total, scoring twice. And typically guys who are putting up the most yards and keep getting denied in the end zone, after they find it, they tend to go on a scoring spree. So roll the dice. On the downside, though, while everyone knows Aiden Hutchinson is a beast and has the potential of being the best defensive end the Lions have ever had, when he went down, it was assumed that the huge hole left when he got injured spelled disaster for their defense for the year. But the rest of the team has stepped up like they have something to prove in his absence and been making great plays and stellar performances. So roll the dice here on Josh Jacobs, but also don't be surprised if you do that and the Lions defense comes by and smacks you for it. And that's one of the reasons we call them honorable mentions, right? Not quite picking them, but you can roll the dice and, there's upsides. Wide receiver, Keon Coleman. This rookie is going for 5,400 on DraftKings and 6,000 on FanDuel. In the 2 weeks since adding Amari Cooper, Keon Coleman has come on strong. As teams have been focusing on Cooper, Coleman has been getting open and doing damage. As Amari Cooper's time on the field continues to increase, as he gets familiar with plays and the quarterback, expect Coleman to find more opportunities in the open field. Even though the Dolphins are a tough secondary team, I expect this game to be Coleman's best week yet. Cedric Tillman is going for 4,300 in DraftKings and 6,100 in FanDuel, which makes him cheap to get and has plenty of upside. Since both Amari Cooper getting traded and Deshaun Watson getting injured, Tillman's use has skyrocketed the last 2 weeks. And last week not only was a good week for him in targets, receptions, and yards, but also touchdowns, as he scored twice in what was his new quarterback's, Jameis Winston's, first start of the season, and was also, like I mentioned earlier, awarded Player of the Week. So even though the Chargers are a tougher defense, expect the better quarterback play, lack of options, and Tillman showing back-to-back weeks volume, and that he is not only can handle the volume, he's dependable. So expect him to get his targets and production in this week as well. Terry McLaurin. While he isn't exactly cheap in either app, going for 7,400 in FanDuel and 7,100 in DraftKings, and is going up against the Giants defense, whose secondary has been top 10 in the league all season long. Might seem like not the safest of options, but that asking price for McLaurin is still far behind the top 5 wide receiver asking prices. Far behind it. And has proven himself not only this year, but in the past as being a consistent producer, but is fourth in the league in receiving yards. He has proven you can count on him no matter who he is playing. Your honorable mention is A.J. Brown. And yes, I know he comes with a high price tag, as he is 8,100 in DraftKings and 9,000 in FanDuel. But he is back and healthy, and this week is going up against the Jaguars, whose secondary is ranked second worst in the league. A.J. Brown has shown year after year since joining the league he is a top talent at the wide receiver position. And with him being back and healthy and putting up solid numbers in his 3 weeks back since injury, should be in full form now and ready for a breakout game. And this is the game to do it. Tight end. Brock Bowers. I've been picking him, and you're about to find out again why. If you haven't been following around all season and following him and finding out, okay, I see why you're picking him. This rookie comes with the top price tag as far as tight ends go in the league for both DraftKings at 6,000 and FanDuel at 7,700. And while yes, his usage was down quite a bit last week as he went 5 targets for 5 receptions for 58 yards. He caught everything and got 58 yards. And that was a down week. But this tight end is leading the entire NFL in receptions. That's right. Not just talking about tight ends, the entire NFL. He is leading it in receptions. And he's a tight end. As you are well aware, a reception is worth half a point in FanDuel and 1 full point in DraftKings. And leading in receiving yards as far as tight ends go, even after Kittle and McBride's monster game last week. He is also facing the Bengals secondary, which has been right at 10th worst in the league and 7th worst against tight ends. And this week are going against not only a rookie, but a rookie who is leading all tight ends in the league in receptions and yards and the entire NFL in receptions. Yes, he has 1 solo touchdown. And it's a position that usually is a red zone threat. But that's not really entirely on him, as they have only scored 8 touchdowns all season long in the passing, and scored even less than that on the ground. It's just one of the lowest scoring teams in the league. But this is a prime game for not only his stats, which so far has been doing a really good job of that, but also for his touchdown stat line as well. As we know, while the Bengals secondary isn't that good, they have been a scoring machine as a team. So the high scoring should continue to put the ball in the air. And when you have the league leader in receptions on your team, you can be sure you're going to see the ball go his way a lot. Honorable mention, Cole Kmet. Again, and really getting sick of picking Bears players. But again, playing against a weak defense, which Caleb Williams statistically does the best in, is also games that Cole Kmet statistically does the best in as well. As those are games that Williams actually utilizes him. Any correlation there, I wonder? Again, use your sure-handed, big-body tight end more. There is a reason teams that have them, the QBs love them. May not be a huge thing in college, but in the NFL, it is. So again, there's more of a reason teams that have them use them and love them. So throw him the ball. He is 5,200 in FanDuel and 4,400 in DraftKings. Defenses. Like I say, go cheap this week. Grab the Giants, as they are going for 2,300 in DraftKings and 3,200 in FanDuel this week. Yes, the Commanders have been a team that has done a good job moving down the field equally in the air and on the ground this year. And with all the picks they had in the draft this year, are a young team, but one that apparently the picks are looking like, they were worth it. But the Giants have scored you 5 or more points in every game this year, except for 2. The Giants defense, right? So this has been a gritty defensive team all year long and has been getting the job done on their side of things. And at that price from a defense, 5 or more points is like that light shining down and them singing, hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. In the shows and the movies, right? Your honorable mention is the Packers. They are going for 2,700 on DraftKings and 3,400 on FanDuel. And like the Giants, have kept opposing teams to low-scoring games in most of the games, giving them points. And then, trickling in things like sacks, interceptions, forced fumbles. That's something they've been really good at. Here and there, adding, for more added points, right? Now, going with these picks, and when I say going with these picks, I mean not counting any of the honorable mentions, right? Just going with, the actual picks, so, the tight end, the first defense pick, the first tight end, the first 3 wide receivers, the first 2 running backs, the first quarterback. Again, when I'm going over the amounts here, that's also not incorporating, like I said, where FanDuel has Joe Flacco, right? Where you can pick him up. That's not incorporating any of this, right? Again, you can redo the math and figure those things out if you like, and figure out where you would put them. But anyway, going with these picks will leave you with 6,100 for flex in DraftKings. And 6,100 in DraftKings, there's a lot you can actually do with 6,100 when it comes to DraftKings. Because guys are typically cheaper there because you start with 50,000 to disperse instead of 60,000 like you do on FanDuel. So that's enough to get you someone solid in DraftKings for sure. And in FanDuel, we'll leave you with 8,400 for your flex, which will be enough to grab you a monster player. You can grab a really good player for 8,400. So, take advantage of these picks. Do your thing, right here is your roadmap. If you want to play some daily fantasy sports, take a chance. Go with these picks. Go with them. Use that leftover income or advice or swap in some of them honorable mention players. Maybe go with an honorable mention player, in your flex, whatever the case may be. But yeah, use the information before you, and if you want to take a chance on DraftKings and FanDuel to join a game and maybe win some money, well, here you go. Here's what you need. Now, feel free to like, feel free to dislike, feel free to comment, and by all means, feel free to subscribe. You can do all those things, and you can do them below. And of course, definitely tune in for next week. Again, this is Bud with Bud's Hot Sports Takes. Thanks again for tuning in.